Hi, I'm Kelly Mountain with Goddess Modern, and I'm making a video guided by just kind of an impulse that I'm feeling, and from just keeping tuned in to the collective journey as we are processing and navigating world events, political events, what's happening in the US and globally, starting from the 2024 election. And I have been making a series of content regarding my perspectives, my positions, my observations, I guess, my attempts to be a voice of community care and connection and even healing and growth within these times together. So I've made a playlist in my YouTube channel called Conscious Conversations, and so far there's a few videos of me giving just like the insights and observations that are coming up for me that I feel like, you know, maybe others would resonate with. Maybe the information would be helpful or supportive at this time. And I have also done a video with one other woman so far. Her name is Phoenix. We did a video that's also in that playlist to speak to the 2024 elections and the aftermath that we're all still navigating together. And that video ended up being 2 hours long, and we didn't even get to like the real marrow of like the whole, like really like what we wanted to get into in that video. It took us 2 hours just to really create the context around what we wanted to get into and talk about, and creating the context, meaning within all that we're navigating together as a collective at this time, how do we bring in more curiosity and compassion and forgiveness and patience and humility and vulnerability into the space between us while we are on this wild, epic journey together. So if you end up liking this video, then you might enjoy checking out that playlist and seeing the other content I have there. And where I am intuiting already that that playlist is going to go into is having more conscious conversations with people not only that share my similar points of view, but people that share different points of view, so that we can just start exploring what is it like to be in community together and in conversation together around these really polarizing topics when we don't see the same way. How do we still prioritize our connection and the strength and the health of our community? All of which I feel are super important topics, because at least from what I can tell, the way I see it is that our power as a collective, our power as a species, is in our connection with each other. So I just want to be a voice in service to connection and in service to empowering community locally, online, globally. And I think that I think we as a global species, a global family, I think we're gonna be learning a lot about what it means to be more powerful as a people together. So if you like this content, like I said, go ahead and check out that playlist, Conscious Conversations. And it is my intention in this video to be a voice of connection and care and kindness and compassion, hopefully wisdom and insight, because there's so many voices in the online space that's coming to us through our devices all the time, every day, right? Like every time we turn on our phone and get onto a platform of some kind, right? And my intention is that within all of the noise, I can at least contribute my voice in a way that I feel like is going to be helpful towards creating more care and kindness and compassion um, and empowerment within community. And there's a piece that's been coming up. I've been kind of like chewing on it for a couple of weeks, and I'm like, okay, I just want to sit. I'm just gonna like sit down and do this here with you, because there's like a piece coming up, and it's been really interesting. My process. I'll just really quick before I get into it. It's been part of what's been really interesting in my process while I've been making content on these topics that you'll find in that playlist, Conscious Conversations, that I mentioned. Well, actually, there's been many fascinating things, aspects to this little journey for me so far. But one of the things that I have been really like reflecting on a lot about is sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I'm just gonna like, this is why I have notes down here, because these topics are so complex and nuanced, and it's just kind of easy, and it's like not, you know, to be in like a monologue like this. You know, it's an honor and a joy to be here with you in this way, and at the same time it's a very unnatural way to be speaking and sharing information. So anyways, I'm gonna just reference my notes that I have down here and just get into the marrow of what I want to get into. Yeah, and I feel like that piece, it kind of left, but it'll come back. Okay, here we go. Having a human moment here, guys. I'm not here to be perfect. Okay, here we go. Well, one piece is really how that I've been reflecting on is how, as a species, we are still really learning a lot about what it is to have these devices, these little miniature supercomputers that we carry around everywhere with us, that has become our extra appendage and connection to the global world. You know, we are so new in terms of like the total timeline of human history. And I'm not just talking about recorded history, I'm talking about all of human history, you know, that goes back, you know, maybe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years more. I mean, it's human beings have been on Earth for a long time. And, you know, the amount of time that we've had these devices, these phones, you know, relative to how long we've been here, I mean, it's almost like if you were just to stand back and look at like the whole timeline of human existence, like we basically just got these phones like 2 hours ago, and we're still figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like we're still so new at having this device that instantly connects us all over the world. And obviously there's so much positivity in these technologies, and at the same time, as a species, we're still really learning how to process the immense amount of collective trauma and pain and suffering that we are all being exposed to, like all day, every day, right? Through these devices. And it's really intense. And some people get understandably totally overwhelmed by the immensity of that pain. You know, again, like you go back, you know, before cell phones, before TV, movies, before newspapers and radio, you know, all of that just started, like, again, relative to like the whole human timeline. All of that just came on board, just came on the scene like very, very, very recently. So up until that point, it was basically like, as a species, our ancestors, the way our ancestors and our ancient ancestors lived for so long, is they didn't have this connection, this global instant connection to like all the traumas and atrocities happening all around the world at any given moment, right? Like we basically, our ancient ancestors basically, like, they knew what was in their immediate environment, right? And that was like that was like what they were processing, right? And so now here we are in this modern age with these devices and like this amazing technology that has really great sides, and it has other sides that are detrimental when they're not used in balanced, healthy ways, right? And we're still learning, like, what are these balanced, healthy ways? And so it's one piece around like how we are still really learning how to just process this amount of pain, collective pain, right? And then how doing so comes into the relational space between people, whether it's like more intimate relationships or friendship groups, or whether it's like just like community or like online community. How we then take what we're like being exposed to and processing and feeling so deeply around, most of which is like very like immensely concerning, and then how do we communicate about it, right? And again, like and another, well, I guess to couple it is like this piece around how it's amazing, that this technology works for us in so many ways, but one thing I'm seeing is that one way it works against us is that, and I think, this is all just part of our learning. We're simply on this journey of learning more about how to do this like relational community thing through these devices. Like for instance, like here I am just like sitting in my place by myself, and I'm having this conversation with all of you who are tuning in, who like all of whom I've never met before, never seen. It's like we're still learning how to be in relationship with each other with all this, right? And one part of it, I think, is part of the learning, from what I can tell, is that it would benefit us to bring more awareness to the fact that, when it comes to these like political and global events happening that are really concerning, really traumatic or painful, like first of all, there's just so much going on that it's just like totally overwhelming, totally overwhelming. So I hope that you're doing what you need to take care of yourself and unplug and be outside and connect with nature, or just meditate and like ground your energy. So I think it would be helpful to bring more mindfulness to the fact that like each one of these topics is so nuanced, so complicated, so complex, that like to learn about it in these ways, in these online ways, it's very inefficient if we're trying to really fully see and understand the full picture of anything, really. Especially because a lot of the sources from which things are coming from are just naturally biased in the least bit. Most likely they have a very specific agenda that they're pushing through their platform of as a resource, right? That's why I think like independent media, which is where I've been sourcing all my information for the last decade or so. Yeah, I think independent media is the best way to go. But even still, it's like, all of this in combination with the fact that these complex, super nuanced, complicated topics, you just can't, it's almost like impossible in this way of like, in this convenience culture where we just want to listen to a 5-minute video and like be able to be told everything we need to like understand like this one topic or something, right? It's just like impossible. It's like near impossible. It's impossible. It's too much. And then there's this piece too around like, even as reputable as some of the sources may be that some of us are plugged into, there still is like, nothing is a full picture story. I mean, we're still just getting these like tiny, like these like fractions of what's happening. And we're like, some of us are really, really wanting to understand. And so we're like trying to put like pieces together, but it's just kind of like a guessing game, right? I mean, a lot points in certain directions for sure. But all to say, it's like we're at a really intense like developmental stage as a species, learning how to relate to each other through this thing. And especially when it comes to topics of this nature that I'm speaking to. And I think that this is a really important point, because my hope is that by presencing this piece, that it helps people kind of like open up their perspective a little bit to, you know, just something like, maybe I don't have every single detail that there is to know about this topic. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't fully know. And that right there, I think, would be a massive breakthrough as a global community, and certainly within the US, for us to apply in relation to these topics and how these topics come into the relational space between us. I think it's I think that would be like, that in itself would be like a massive breakthrough, to just recognize that all of us, we really have no idea what's going on. And anyone who's like, I know the truth and I know the whole story and my sources say blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you don't. You don't, because your sources don't either. And, you know, it's just how it is right now. So, you know, I guess like another way to say it is, perhaps there's a way that we as a community are learning more about how to bring more humility to these topics together. That none of us know the full truth of what's going on. None of us know the full story. And yes, you know, the sources of information that these stories are coming through do an amazing job at like painting pictures in such a way that's like, you know, creating the perpetrator and creating the victims. And I mean, that's ultimately what the media and the government, they're masters at that. They're masters at perpetuating the victim and perpetrator story over and over and over. And it's very disempowering for us as a collective. And I think it's one of the topics that we're going to be learning a lot about over the next at least 20 years, around a piece around in order to access more of our empowerment individually and collectively, we need to, in the least bit, assess our relationship to our identity as victims. That is a whole other conversation for another time. That's not the purpose of this video. I'm going to keep moving on here. Thank you for being with me here, by the way. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate everything that you are doing in your own way to just live your best life during these wild times. And, you know, hopefully you're doing everything you can to be your best version of yourself, and be good to yourself and be good to the people that you love and that love you, because that's really all that matters. Moving on. Okay. So there's that. Another piece that I want to speak to is how, actually, one sec, guys. I need to get a drink really quick. My mouth gets dry doing these videos. Thank you. Well, a piece that comes up for me is how, like, so if you are familiar with my content, you know that I use the archetypes of tarot and astrology for self-development and healing, and for understanding human psychology and understanding how to create a deeper quality of intimacy with life. And I have a playlist on my YouTube channel for all my tarot and astrology readings. I do a new moon and a full moon reading every month. And so part of being connected to these archetypal imprints that we all have is I'm constantly tracking cycles of time, because that's like basically what astrology is. It's using archetypal frameworks within just cycles within cycles within cycles of time, and then like using patterns to understand imprints, and then understanding where is the free will choice within it all that kind of like guides the ship one way or another, and ideally into the creating optimal outcomes. So because I'm constantly tracking so many different cycles of time, what I want to share is that astrologically, this year is really pivotal because we have all of the outer planets changing sign between 2025 and 2026. And so what that means, so the outer planets, they move in cycles of time. They move very slowly. So, and I'm gonna get to more specifically this information in a second, but for now and in this moment, all I want to really speak to is how there's a piece around resiliency that I want to speak to, because collectively here on planet Earth, all of us here, we are on a journey right now of change. We are the current has hit, and the waves will continue to hit. And I'm talking like the currents of change that are beginning right now. It's a massive force, bigger than any of us here. And there's this piece around resiliency of like, like if these waves are going to keep hitting, how do we take care of ourselves so that we don't just get like pummeled and depleted every single time another wave crashes in, right? Like the span of time that we are all going to be experiencing an immense amount of change, it's really significant. I mean, we're talking like cycles of like 20 years, 35 years, 165 years, 84 years, 250 years. We're talking about like there are cycles ending and beginning right now that none of us alive on this earth has ever lived through before, and none of us alive will live to see the end of these cycles. You know what I mean? Like, for some of them, like it's and then some of them are like 20 to 35 to 84 year cycles where it's like, wow, so it's all happening within a 2-year time period of like this huge significant changeover to these cycles. And so I just feel like there's this really important piece around like resiliency. Like, we got to take better care of ourselves so we don't get pummeled by every single wave. And I think the answer is in connection. Because I think part of what hurts so bad about when the polarizing topics, when the wave crashes, is how it disconnects us. And that disconnection, we feel that on a deep level in our nervous system, and that's a threat to our survival. And I think that what's going to be most supportive during these waves of change is our ability to stay connected, even if we don't agree. And I think that's ultimately what we're learning a lot about as a collective right now. What does it mean to stay connected even if we don't agree? So, and part of what makes me think about this is how, like, my understanding of, like, the species on Earth that have lived the longest, that have, like, survived, like, ages and epochs and, ice ages and, like the species that have endured are the ones that have mastered adaptability. And there's a resilience, like adaptability is, from what I can see, depends upon resiliency. And I just feel like there's this way that we're growing right now as a collective where we're just simply learning more about this so that we can not only survive, but we can thrive. And I think that this is a big part of learning more about our power as a community, as a collective. And so I guess, I just want to be like, I guess maybe that's one of the things I wish to bring forward right now with you is like, is this sense of resiliency and adaptability. And it's like, it's tricky, right? Because some people, you know, there's also this way that's like, we also still have to honor our human experience, right? And this is where like, this is where it all gets a little like kind of confusing for people sometimes, because they're like, well, how do I be resilient and feel all these horrible feelings at the same time of like what I'm witnessing in the world and what I'm witnessing in politics and what I'm, you know, in the government and, you know, in society and all this stuff. And it's like, I know it might sound hard, but the answer is to maybe is to grow the capacity to allow for all of it to exist in the same time at the same space, all right next to each other. To grow past a way of being, past a way of relating to self and other, past a way of thinking about it that's like, well, if I think this and I can't think that. If I feel all these ways and I can't also, if I feel this pain, then I can't also feel connection and resiliency and adaptability. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not true. You can feel all the pain, and you can feel connected, and you can put effort towards resiliency and adaptability. You can. It's possible. I promise. I've done it, and if I can do it, you can do it. And so I think that it's just like a big part of like where we're at as a collective and what we're learning at this time. And I think that there's within it just a need to bring more patience to the process. And I know it's hard. I know that, you know, there's a lot of people, especially in the US, that are like really, really feeling super unsettled and concerned and fearful and anxious and angry and, you know, all kinds of things regarding all the changes that are taking place in the US government at this time. And I guess, and what I will be getting more to, like I said, Phoenix and I made that one video that I referenced in the Conscious Conversations playlist. In the next video that I'm going to make that's following it, where I'm like really going to get more into the marrow, what I'm going to be sharing more about my personal perspective on these topics is like, what's influencing me is a far greater timeline than just what's happening right now. And so, yeah, like similarly, regarding what I'm sharing with you here, there's like that timeline, that bigger timeline, I feel like is part of what's like coming through me at this time to give words, to speak to these topics right now. Like I'm thinking, I'm not only part of the timeline influencing me right now actually is like, I'm thinking ahead to the next election cycle in 4 years. And part of my message to community is like, hey, we need to figure out a better way to do this, because since 2016, things started getting weird. 2020, more weird. 2024, concerning, really concerning. And like the next election cycle up ahead, 4 years ahead, I'm concerned that I feel like we have 4 years to like figure out a better way to do this together so that we don't break in the next election cycle. Because that's like part of the timeline I'm tuning into. Anyhow. So I think I made my point on those pieces. I'm going to move on. So within all of this, I just want to speak a word of caution. Be careful not to fall under a spell that says that you can't still be connected if you disagree. You know, understand that sources of information typically have agendas that benefit from disconnecting us as a community. And similarly, a word of caution to following people that are voices of disconnection because of disagreements, because of not seeing the same way on certain topics. Just a word of caution. Personally, I don't think that's the way. I can understand why that would seem the right way to some people. It's in a sense like a natural trauma response, you know? It's a natural response to saying like, ouch, I don't like that and I want less of that and like get away from me. Like, you know, push him away, right? But you know, there's just, it comes down to like what helps. Does it help or does it hurt? Does it help or does it harm? You know, what's more in service to like you know, a timeline where we are victorious as a people together in our connection and in our power together, you know. And I think that, you know, I'm not, you know, like I'm not trying to say like it's a judgment thing or like a better or worse or good or bad, you know, for like for the people that are out and the sources of information that are out there that are voices of ultimately dividing people because of disagreeing. You know, everyone's just at where they're at, and if that's what you resonate with, you know, that's your choice and that's your freedom, that's your right. And you know, I respect that I respect everyone for their position and their choice, and I really do believe that for the most part, like human beings are really, really good people. Everyone's really doing the very, very best they can with their experience and their information and, you know, their resources and their abilities just to live a good life, right? Like that's how I see it anyways. So it's not a better or worse than, but I just want to be a voice of encouragement to follow sources, you know, follow content and follow people, follow leaders, follow sources of information that are, you know, voices of connection, even within navigating these waves of, you know, disagreement on various topics. I think that's super important. And I think that there's just a different way. I think part of what we're learning as a community is a different way of how to be with the topics that we disagree on, you know. For, you know, coming back to the piece around humility of like, you know, just acknowledging like, I don't know every single thing there is to know about this topic, even though all the sources that I am plugged into all seem very well informed. They don't even know. They don't even know all there is to know, mostly because everyone's just, you know, we're all plugged into sources of information that feed our own personal bias, right? So, I mean, and again, most of these sources of information, if it's not independent media, it has an agenda, and that agenda benefits from disrupting the connection between people. All right, I'm just gonna wrap up. For some of you that like the stuff that I talk about with like astrology and tarot and stuff, yeah, so I just wanted to like go into that just a little bit more around the resiliency piece, because yeah, we've got not only did the planet Pluto just recently in November start a new 20-year cycle in the sign of Aquarius, it actually started also a new 250-year cycle. We've got Neptune and Saturn moving into Aries. Neptune is 165 years. Saturn is going to be like about a 30-year cycle, and Uranus is about 84 years. Jupiter's 12 years. So all of these planets are changing sign within 2025 and 2026. It's a really, I mean, this is like, it's a really intense transformational journey that we are all on. We are basically going to be in like a global collective ayahuasca ceremony together for the next 2 years. So, you know, if you know how to navigate that space, then you'll, you know, have some, you know, some anchoring pillars inside to rely on to take care of yourself. But, you know, part of what's important to understand about all of this is that well, it's my understanding. You can do what you want with it. It's my understanding, and I'll just share it with you in case maybe it's helpful or maybe it's just interesting to think about. Is the way I see it, we all signed up to be here at this time before we, our souls, before we came and chose to embody in these bodies and have these lives. We knew that this was going to be a part of this journey of embodiment, and we signed up for this. We have what it takes to meet this. It's truly an honor to get to do so, because all of us here in our own unique ways are going to be helping to rewrite the story of humanity. And the whole purpose of rewriting the story is really about empowering people, empowering humanity. And it's really beautiful. It's such a deep honor, and it's rewriting the story that none of us will be alive to see the outcomes of. Although we will all certainly be participating in it through the ways that we live our lives here and the ways that we're in relationship with each other. And so it's really powerful. So we all have within us what we need to face these challenges. And I think it's enough to just simply in this moment feel an openness to acknowledging that none of us has all the answers, acknowledging that there is a better way, that we as a people need to be doing this during these times, you know, so that when the waves crash, we are better anchored together by staying in connection. And, you know, it's enough to just like be open to what I'm saying right now, you know, like to just consider it and to just like take it in and use it as like a reflective seed. You know, if you resonate with anything I'm sharing here in this video, just simply allow it to come inside. You don't have to fully understand it. If you resonate with it, just receive it and just, you know, water it with your attention and intention, and just allow it to kind of reveal and open up more to you and how it specifically relates to you in your experience at this time, and how it can maybe be helpful for you, and how it might be able to even empower you and equip you to be another, you know, another node of light in this world, to be another voice of connection in this world while we're going through all of this. So that's really the gist of what I wanted to share here. Thank you again so much for your time in being here with me in this way. There's a million other things you could be doing right now, and I just acknowledge that and honor your time spent with me. It's a precious, precious gift. Thank you. If you like this content and you want to see more, like I mentioned before, I have a playlist in my YouTube channel called Conscious Conversations, and then I have tons. I have like a lot of videos. Generally, this whole like conscious conversation thing is like this whole kind of like random offshoot from what I normally focus on in my work, which is like I work with women and couples for transformational work and intimacy, and I work one-on-one and coaching and sessions and events and retreats. I'm a writer, I'm an artist, I'm a dancer, so that's the content you'll generally see on my channel. If you like this message and if you want to support me in my work, please like, comment, or share this video. And you can learn more about me on my website, which is goddessmodern.com. And I'll put in the description to this video the other ways to be in touch, like through Instagram and Substack. Okay, well, that basically completes the video. Thank you. Take care. Be well.